Excuse me. I'm looking for the owner.
You need to get dressed. You coming with us.
The story begins when Mac calls his friend Jackson and tells him that a woman named Lizanne is being abused by her husband, Bob. Jackson immediately decides to step in. He heads to Bob's gym, waits for him to finish his workout, then calmly tries to talk some sense into him. But Bob loses his temper and attacks him instead. Despite Bob's strength, Jackson takes him down with ease. He scolds him for hitting his wife, tells him to make it up to her with a nice gift, and makes him promise never to lay a hand on her again. Before leaving, Jackson warns him that if he ever hurts her again, he'll be back. Then he walks away. The next day, the famous singer Jiari finishes recording her new song and leaves the studio. But outside, she notices that her usual driver is gone, replaced by a stranger who claims he's filling in for him. Even though the man tries to reassure her, she can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Meanwhile, Jackson returns to the nightclub where he works as the head of security. His friend Mac pays him for the job he completed earlier that morning. While watching the security cameras, Jackson spots a familiar face. He walks over and realizes it's his ex-girlfriend Gina. They catch up and talk about the past, and we learn that Jackson used to be a police officer before leaving the force and making a living by taking on dangerous jobs for money, sending his life in a completely different direction. Later, Jackson takes Gina back to his place, and they spend the evening practicing martial arts together. The following morning, he's awakened by the doorbell. When he opens the door, he finds a delivery man holding a package. But the moment Jackson reaches for it, two armed men suddenly step out from behind the delivery worker, force their way inside, and order him to come with them to meet their boss, Holland. Jackson jokes that they could have just called him instead of making such a dramatic entrance. Then he asks them to lower their guns because he doesn't like weapons. They ignore him, so he waits for the perfect moment, catches them off guard, and takes down the first man in seconds. He immediately turns to the second one and knocks him out just as quickly. Afterward, he stuffs both men into the elevator and tells the building's security guard to throw them out once they wake up. Jackson then heads straight to Holland's office. Without an appointment, he walks into the meeting room, places a box on the conference table, and asks everyone to postpone their meeting. He tells Holland that the two men he sent destroyed one of his flower vases and that he expects to be compensated for it. Without arguing, Holland orders someone to bring him $2,000 and pays him on the spot. Holland then offers Jackson a new assignment. He explains that the famous singer Jiari has been missing for an entire week, even though she was about to release a new album. Her disappearance is putting the company at risk of losing a fortune. Jackson wonders why Holland chose him for the job, and Holland reminds him that Jackson used to be Jiari's personal bodyguard, meaning no one knows her better than he does. Holland offers him $50,000 to find her, half up front and the other half after the job is done. Jackson accepts immediately, takes the advance payment, and begins searching for Jiari. After leaving the office, Jackson speaks with Holland's secretary, Lonnie. He asks her to contact him immediately if she hears anything about Jiari because he's starting to suspect that Holland is hiding something from him. Before leaving, Jackson slips her some cash in exchange for any information she can find. After that, Jackson meets up with his friend Mac and tells him that he'll be disappearing for a few days because he's been hired to find Jiari in exchange for a huge payday. We also learn that Jackson used to be Jiari's personal bodyguard, which made many people believe they were romantically involved. But in reality, the only thing motivating him now is the money. Mac tries to convince him to stay away from the job, then tells him that Jiari had been in a relationship with a wealthy man named Money who owns a nightclub. Jackson thanks him for the information and immediately heads out to follow his first lead. Before starting the investigation, Jackson visits Gina to apologize for ignoring her calls the previous day. He tells her he'll be busy for the next week and that it's better if they don't see each other until then. Gina can tell he's hiding something, but Jackson is intentionally pushing her away because he has no idea what he's about to face and doesn't want to put her in danger. Gina becomes even more upset when she finds out he's searching for Jiari since she knows they used to be close. But Jackson assures her that his relationship with Jiari was strictly professional and that he was nothing more than her bodyguard. Eventually, Gina believes him and leaves. Jackson then goes to meet Money, the man who was involved with Jiari, and asks to speak with him in private. Once Money takes him inside, he immediately asks, "What do you want with my wife?" Jackson explains that the record company hired him to find Jiari and asks whether she's contacted him recently. Money tells him that a few days ago, she said she was leaving town to get some rest, but ever since then, she hasn't answered any of his calls, making him feel that something isn't right. Money suggests they search her apartment together and even offers Jackson a gun, but Jackson refuses, insisting that he doesn't need weapons. When they arrive at the apartment, everything is neat and organized, with no sign of where Jiari might have gone. While Money searches the other rooms, Jackson notices an invitation to a party lying in the trash. Without saying a word, he quietly slips it into his pocket. Jackson calms Money down and tells him not to rush to conclusions. He promises to do everything he can to find Jiari within a week. After leaving the apartment, Jackson heads straight to the party mentioned on the invitation, but to his surprise, he finds Holland there. Holland looks at him suspiciously and asks, "I hired you to find Jiari, so what are you doing here?" Jackson explains that he found the invitation in Jahari's apartment and came to see who attended the party. He also questions why Holland never mentioned it. Holland coldly replies that he simply didn't want Jackson showing up there. During the party, Jackson notices an influential Asian woman who seems to hold a great deal of power. He walks over to Holland's secretary Lonnie and asks who she is. Lonnie tells him that her name is Song, that she's the mastermind behind Holland's business empire and one of the company's biggest investors. In fact, much of the company's success is because of her. Meanwhile, Gina is also attending the party as part of the event staff. She is talking with Song when Jackson joins them. Gina introduces him, and Jackson explains that he's searching for Jiari after her disappearance and hopes Song might know something that could help. However, Song tells him she knows nothing about Jahari's whereabouts, wishes him good luck, and walks away. After the party ends, Jackson leaves with Gina, but he's more convinced than ever that Jahari's disappearance is hiding something far bigger than he originally expected. As they are leaving, two men on a motorcycle suddenly pull up and open fire on them. Jackson quickly takes down one of the attackers and notices from his appearance that he's Asian, but before he can question him, the second gunman drags his partner away and speeds off. The only thing left behind is the attacker's helmet, which may be the key to uncovering the truth. When Jackson turns back, he realizes that Gina has been shot in the shoulder. He rushes her to the hospital and is relieved to learn that the wound isn't life-threatening. Later, Jackson returns home, where he finds Money waiting for him and asking if he's made any progress. Jackson tells him that he's getting close to the truth, but Money warns him that he's running out of patience and demands that he find Jiari as soon as possible. At that moment, Jackson realizes the case is much bigger and far more dangerous than he first imagined, and that talking alone won't get him the answers he needs. He asks Money to stay at the hospital and protect Gina. Then Jackson heads to a nightclub known as a hangout for Asian gang members. He shows them the attacker's helmet, hoping someone will recognize it and lead him to his first real breakthrough. The gang members refuse to cooperate, and one of them even pulls a gun on him. But in a split second, Jackson snatches the weapon out of his hand and launches into a brutal fight, taking down every gang member one after another. Once they're all on the ground, Jackson begins questioning the survivors. He first asks about the owner of the helmet. After threatening him, the man finally breaks and admits that it belongs to a hitman named Sun, who is currently hospitalized. Jackson then asks about Sun's partner. The man tells him his name is Bruce Lee, but the biggest revelation comes moments later when another gang member admits that Sun and Bruce Lee recently carried out a job for the owner of a record company, only for the mission to end in failure. Jackson immediately puts all the pieces together and realizes that the person who sent the assassins to kill him had to be Holland. Without wasting another second, Jackson storms into Holland's office and demands the full truth about his connection to Song and Jiari. This time, Holland realizes he can no longer lie and finally confesses everything. He explains that he had fallen deep into debt until Song loaned him a huge amount of money with massive interest. Later, Song kidnapped Jiari and gave him only 5 days to either sell his company's shares and repay the debt or watch Jiari die. Holland then reveals the real reason behind the kidnapping. The death of a famous singer usually sends album sales through the roof, so the plan was to release Jahari's new album first, then kill her, allowing the company to make an enormous profit. With that money, Holland would recover his losses and finally pay off his debt to Song. He also admits that he hired Jackson to search for Jiari only to keep suspicion away from himself and make it appear as though he was doing everything possible to save her. But once Song realized that Jackson was getting too close to the truth, she sent 2 hitmen to eliminate him, despite Holland's warning that Jackson was far from an easy target. Jackson is furious over the betrayal, but he also realizes that Holland has been acting under Song's threats the entire time. Instead of wasting another second blaming him, Jackson demands to know where Jiari is being held. Meanwhile, Money remains at the hospital, guarding Gina. Jackson arrives to check on her, and she tells him that the doctors are planning to discharge her the following day. After making sure she's okay, Jackson steps outside with Money and reveals where Jiari is being held. The two of them agree to launch the rescue mission that very night. At the same time, Song summons Holland and furiously scolds him for hiring Chinese gang hitmen, a decision that has started drawing suspicion toward her. She then angrily demands to know why Jackson learned about their plan. Holland insists that he never told him anything. Despite his denial, Song orders her men to torture him before giving him one final deadline, 48 hours to repay her money or he'll be the next one to die. Meanwhile, Jackson and Money arrive at the building where Jiari is being held captive. They watch the place from a distance until they notice more of Song's men arriving. The two climb onto the roof of a nearby building. Money pulls out a grappling launcher, fires a cable across to the opposite rooftop, crosses first, and Jackson follows right behind him until they successfully reach the building where Jiari is being held. At the very same moment, Jackson tosses a gas grenade down from the rooftop into the building. Meanwhile, Jackson's friend Mac arrives with a group of men disguised as a maintenance crew. They tell the guards they've received a report about a dangerous gas leak, hoping to fool them and gain access to the building. The guards allow Mac inside, but insist that he enters alone. He tries convincing them that fixing a gas leak requires an entire team, but they refuse. Having no other choice, Mac plays along to avoid raising suspicion. Meanwhile, Jackson and Money sneak through the upper floors, searching for Jiari. But before they reach her, Jiari asks to use the restroom. As a result, they don't find her in the room where she had originally been locked up. Downstairs, Mac asks the guards for permission to inspect the gas pipes on the upper floor. The guards become nervous and tell him to wait 5 minutes. During those few minutes, one of them orders his men to move Jiari to another location. While they're escorting her, Jiari sees an opportunity and knocks one of the guards unconscious with a powerful strike. At the same time, Jackson discovers a hidden room. He opens the door and finds Jiari hiding inside. He quickly reassures her that he's there to rescue her. Meanwhile, Money reaches the lower floor where one of the guards is already waiting for him. Within seconds, the situation erupts into a brutal fight involving everyone inside the building. During the chaos, a lit cigarette falls into a gas vent. The leaking gas ignites instantly, and flames begin spreading rapidly throughout the entire building. As the fire breaks out, a massive gunfight erupts between Jackson's team and the Chinese gang. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Jackson's men manage to take down most of the gang after a fierce battle. Money tries to fight his way toward Jackson and Jiari, but the raging flames block his path, forcing him to retreat. On the other side of the building, Jackson tells Jiari to stay hidden until he comes back for her. As soon as he steps outside, one of the gang members confronts him. Jackson reaches for his gun, but another attacker suddenly ambushes him from behind, knocks him to the ground, takes his weapon, and beats him until he loses consciousness. The gang members never realize that Jackson's gun is actually fake. Believing they've already taken care of him, they leave the building without a second thought. A few minutes later, Jackson regains consciousness. He immediately returns to Jiari, smashes one of the windows, and uses ropes to lower both of them safely out of the burning building. Jackson takes Jiari to Dr. Bob, the same man he forced to stop abusing his wife at the beginning of the story. Ever since that day, the relationship between them has completely changed. Bob welcomes Jackson and immediately starts treating his injuries. A short time later, Money arrives with the rest of the team and is overjoyed to see that Jiari is alive and safe. Dr. Bob takes Money away for a medical checkup while Jiari thanks Jackson for rescuing her, but Jackson tells her that the real credit belongs to Money because he risked his life to save her. Jiari then asks Jackson if there's someone special in his life. Jackson admits that he's already seeing someone and says he needs to go check on her. He immediately heads to Gina's hospital room only to discover that she's already gone. After asking around, he learns that she took a taxi to the record company's headquarters. What Jackson doesn't know is that Song deliberately lured Gina there. Realizing she's in danger, Money decides to accompany Jackson, and the two of them race toward the company. On the way, Jackson calls Lonnie and tells her not to let Gina enter the building under any circumstances. At the very same time, Song orders her men to kill Gina the moment she arrives and to eliminate Holland as well. While Jackson is still talking to Lonnie on the phone, Gina reaches the company. She tries to speak with Jackson, but before she can say much, Song and her gang suddenly arrive. From Gina's panicked voice, Jackson immediately realizes something is wrong and tells her to hang up the phone and run. The moment the call ends, Gina rushes to escape. Meanwhile, Song and her men storm into the building and kill Holland before sending their men to hunt Gina down. Just then, Jackson and Money arrive at the company's headquarters, only to find dozens of heavily armed gang members waiting for them. Another battle begins, even more dangerous than anything they faced before. By the time Money catches up with Jackson, Jackson has already taken down most of the gang by himself. Money heads toward Holland's office, while Jackson makes his way to the rooftop, where Song's remaining bodyguards are waiting for him. Even though they're highly trained fighters, Jackson defeats them one after another. He eventually grabs a hammer from one of them and uses it to finish off the rest. At last, only Song remains. Jackson gives her one final chance to end everything peacefully and release Gina, but Song refuses and draws her sword, beginning their their final showdown. During the fight, Jackson suddenly hears someone screaming. He turns around and sees Lonnie hanging over the edge of the rooftop by a rope. Without hesitation, Song slices through the rope with her sword, but at the very last second, Jackson dives forward and catches Lonnie before she falls to her death. Just then, Gina grabs a fire hose and blasts Song with a powerful stream of water, knocking her off the rooftop. Song falls to her death. After helping Lonnie back to safety, everyone heads down to Holland's office, where Money informs Jackson that Holland has been killed. Jackson points out that they still need Holland's signature to release Jiari from her contract with the record company. Money smiles and reveals that Holland didn't just sign Jahari's release before he died. He transferred ownership of the entire company to her. He then urges everyone to leave immediately. Moments after they escape the building, the company's headquarters explodes in a massive blast. It is then revealed that Money was the one who arranged the explosion to destroy every piece of evidence connected to Holland's death. In the end, Money hands Jackson the keys to his car and tells him to do the driving this time as a sign of gratitude for everything Jackson did to save the woman he loves. The two of them drive away together as the story comes to an end. Who do you think was the true hero of the movie? Jackson, who risked his life to uncover the truth and save Jiari? Or Money, who sacrificed everything for the woman he loved and made sure all the evidence disappeared after Holland's death? Let us know your choice and why in the comments.